The City of Johannesburg is currently facing a severe crisis as its water and sanitation infrastructure is currently on the brink of collapse. Water authorities say that the water challenges and collapse of infrastructure backlogs are also affecting the city's economic growth. Joburg Water is budgeted only 7.3 billion rand for infrastructural renewal over the next 5 years, which is way below the required 64 billion rand for the decade. Let's get more analysis on this now with Benoit Le Roy, who is the SA Water Chamber CEO. Benoit, thank you so much for joining us. Look, we understand that Joburg Water has budgeted only 7.3 billion for infrastructure renewal over the next 5 years, which is well below that 64 billion rand needed for the decade. But how bad could the situation get?
So, yes, to calibrate ourselves, we're using roughly, Rand Water disclosed today the demand for its water for the Gauteng metros, and Joburg is right on this. It's about 20-25% up this time last year. It's a continuous upward curve, despite the cooler winter season coming on to us, which is a clear show. It demonstrates that it's not the consumer, it's the biggest demand, it's the failing network. So it's leaking a lot. Joburg's been spending about 1.2 billion a year on the water distribution side. It needs to spend between 5 and 6. Cape Town is spending more than the entire Gauteng put together on its water infrastructure. So it's past the talk shops, it's into the workshops now, and it's been well publicized. It's a long, hard road. In Gauteng, we're not there. It's not really, I think, a money issue. I think it's a priority issue. And it's something that the Cape has always been sensitized to for hundreds of years, because it always had water scarcity, whereas Gauteng not really. So I think it's a philosophical thing. I think it's a governance issue. And it's clear that if we don't, we've got to replace in Joburg alone about 25 to 30 billion of water distribution networks, pump stations, pipeworks, reservoirs, and we've got to expand on it also. It's not just replacing the old stuff. That's got to come from somewhere, and it can't come from the rates and taxes. So that's another discussion. It's an interesting one.
Very interesting indeed. Look, Benoit, I mean, on your point there of this being a priority issue, I mean, a lot of people have said this is actually, the water issues here in Gauteng are actually man-made. I mean, let's expand on this discussion. What do you think have been the biggest contributors, apart from the two that you've mentioned, that have been the biggest contributors to the water shortages or lack of maintenance or infrastructural maintenance in the city?
It's identical to the Eskom issue. So it's the same virus that we have across all our state-owned entities and within local, provincial, national government. It's called sweating the assets. We've tried to give services to everybody, which is a noble quest. However, one has to look after the existing infrastructure. One has to rejuvenate it like you would service a car, and then whilst we're expanding on it. We haven't done this. So it's a clear lack of skills, governance. And I think the supply chain management is quite complex, so you need some special professionals to do that, and those people aren't in the tent. They've long left the tent.
Now, we know that the country is currently struggling economically as a result, of course, of those rolling blackouts. So talk to us about the impact then of the water system's collapse, as we know that the province is currently the economic hub of the entire province.
So what we don't want to do is cause panic, although I'm extremely nervous at the moment, and so are my colleagues in the sector. This is far more serious than energy. Energy, there are alternatives. Water, there's no alternative. So we have to sort it out. But the good news is that there's a lot of money sitting in the private sector. It just needs the right audience, the right terms and conditions, and it needs to be governed properly, that the private sector doesn't take advantage. And you know, we see the talk shops, but there's no real policy or legislation that actually, it talks about how we may do things, doesn't talk how we are going to do them. So the sticky point is right there. And I think after the elections, I don't see anything happening before that, to be honest. I think after the elections, the first thing the 7th government will have to do with administration is to be serious, because if we don't sort this out, unfortunately, these tickets, the chickens have come home to roost. And there's no alternative. It's not a quick fix like energy. this is a 10 to 20-year road. So we're at the bottom. We need to pick it up. And I think it's a good economic opportunity to stimulate the economy because there's good multipliers in this. But we need to get stuck into it and stop talking politics, etc. Let's do the technical stuff.
Absolutely. And I mean, this shouldn't be an excuse, Benoit, that because we're heading to elections that, all work then ceases to, progress in terms of the ailing infrastructure. We understand that more than 5.5 million residents in Gauteng, that is about half of the population, have currently been without water for about a week. And I mean, we were recently having debates about a possibility in terms of energy, as you referred to, having a total grid collapse. But how likely is the possibility of a total grid collapse or shutdown in Gauteng pertaining to water?
So, water is supplied by, like Eskom, one big supplier for 80 or 90% of the water in Gauteng by rainwater. That is secure. So we're okay there. We don't have the Eskom problem there. What we've got is a distribution problem. So like on the electricity side, the substations and the distribution network is, people say the bandwidth is the big issue. It's not. We haven't maintained it for 30 years. So that's the real issue in water. So we have 87 systems within Johannesburg with 87 reservoirs, and those systems won't all fail at once. What we're seeing is it's the older systems that are failing, and some of the newer developments that are at the end of the old systems as we expanded outwards are the ones being affected. So I don't think we will see more than 20 to 30% of these collapse over the next a season or two. And the reality is we just hope they're not in the commercial, government or industrial areas, because then those factories will shut down, those organizations will move, and we've seen that happening in other provinces. We don't want that to happen. So total shutdown is completely off the cards. There is technology. There are a lot of people available, and internationally we're being watched very carefully. I'm contacted weekly on this. There are people ready to mobilize to come in, and we can hit those sections, the 87 within Joburg. We can hit those, selectively with the right technology, with the right commercial and funding arrangements and project management to actually stave it off, and also to try and predict. We've got artificial intelligence. We're going into the fifth industrial revolution. We're not going from third to fourth. We're going to the fifth in the water sector, and we've got the tools to be able to focus on where those assets are the most vulnerable. So it's not all hope lost. It's not a catastrophic collapse that we're facing at all.
And that's exactly what I wanted to say, Benoit. I mean, if it's certain systems that are obviously failing, can't we implore then or explore other technologies like you've just mentioned, AI there, in order to advance as well as assist in the current water crisis? I mean, maybe talk to us about what some of those ideas are.
So I like to talk about it as a digital toolbox, because it sort of puts all the spanners and wires and crimping tools in there, etc. But with artificial intelligence, with smart analytics, so like our cell phones, everything on apps, we're able to, without putting new devices, we're able to actually normalize, synchronize, and predict with machine learning and artificial intelligence as to what the system is going to do based on its past behavior and predictive behavior based on the data from the past that we have. Because it depends time of day, weather, and time of year. These things are all, it's not new science. It's been rolled out over a decade ago in the rest of the world, in the developing world, especially. And South Africa's been very reticent because we believe we are not digitally ready. But, we said we'd only sell 2 million cell phones. There's over 80 in the market now. So we are ready. We can do it. It's a political a buying issue. It's an institutional capacity issue. It's not a technology issue at all. It's, the world is booming in the water sector, the energy sector. It's absolutely booming, and those are attracting the skills. So we have to do the reverse. And I'm happy to be in the middle of it and to help, but the thing is, we can't do it on our own in the private sector. We've got to do it all, all together. So we need the political buy-in. That's the key.